Hello everyone, I'm Shane from Chatify, and the purpose of this video is to serve as a training video for users who are new to the Chatify live chat system. It assumes at this stage that you've either set up your team on Chatify or that you've been added to an existing team on Chatify. So you set up your password and you have access to your dashboard. When you log into the dashboard for the first time, you see the profile screen. And it gives just some information about Chatify, but on the bottom left is the main area here where you can set up your profile picture, make sure your name is set up correctly, set your notification, etc. So let's move to the main part of the system and explain the user interface here. So the team inbox is where questions come in from the website. So the questions will come in here, and every member of the team can see them. There's a subsection here called My Inbox, which is questions that are only assigned to me. So if there's more members of the team, but I'm not involved in answering some of those questions, I can click in My Inbox and see the questions that are only assigned to me. So the left-hand side is your main menu area. This is the knowledge base section, and there's an internal team chat section below it and a help section as well, which I'll go through throughout the video. So moving from left to right, live chat is the app we're in at the moment, which again is just questions that are asked from the website. If you had Facebook integrated, you could click here and see any questions that come in from your Facebook page. And you could reply directly from the Chatify dashboard here, and the person will get a reply as if you were replying from Facebook. The middle section is the main question area. So you can see there's a status row at the top. The questions come in to new. Any new question starts off in new. Once an agent replies, it moves to in progress, and ultimately to close when it's resolved. So the idea is to have as many questions as you can in the close section, if not all your questions closed, to make sure that they're all resolved. Obviously, this is a brand new dashboard, so there's no questions at the moment. On the right-hand side here, moving more right, is the information panel. So I can see the users that are on this particular chat system. So I just added some co-workers there. And on the far right is the notifications panel. So I'm all set up. I'm in my dashboard, ready to go. So a user has to ask a question. So let's have a look at that. So if you deploy Chatify on your site, there'll be a little ask button will appear on the bottom right-hand side of your website. So if a user navigates to your particular site, then they can just click on the ask button to ask a question. So I'm going to go ahead and do that as if I'm a customer or potential customer. And I could say, what are your opening hours, which is a very common question. And now as a new user, I get asked, do I want to be notified by a text message or by email? So this can be set up by your administrator in the back end. You could decide on the system that you only want to ask for an email or only want to ask for a phone number, or maybe you want to skip this altogether. But the advantage of getting some contact information is that when the agent replies, the person will get a notification either by email or phone. So if they go offline or something, or maybe if they ask a question when you're not there, or if it's out of office times, once they put in contact details, they'll get an automatic notification of your reply. So it's quite important really to have some way of being able to notify the customer. Also, just as a side note there, Chatify is fully GDPR compliant. I'm not going to go into that on this particular video, but if you do need to find out more about GDPR, you can visit that section on our website. Okay, so the person has asked oh, sorry, I'm going to put in an email address here because I have to put in something here. So I set up a Chatify test email so we can have a look at it later. and submit that. Okay, so the user has asked their question and submitted the question, their email address. So back in the dashboard, you can see now that there's a notification, a little red notification here on the team inbox section to say that a new question has come into the team. I can click here to see the question, and again, this is unread, so it's marked with a flame to say that it's unread. And for me now to answer that question, I just need to click into the question, and I can type my reply here. But before I type the reply, I just want to show you that there's quite a lot of information about this question already. So on the right-hand side, you can see that it's the first question from this particular user. So if there was more questions, you could click here and see a history of the questions that the person has asked, which is quite handy if they've asked multiple questions. You can see that they're online. You can see the email address they provided. You can see the number they provided. This is their IP, where they're showing from, and the page that they asked their question on. So the page is a really important one because a website, usually will have multiple pages. Some websites could have hundreds, if not thousands of pages. And a person might be on, let's say, a big retail site, and they might ask the question like, does this jacket come in black? And if you're unsure from the URL, from the exact URL, what product they're talking about, you could just click the URL in the question, and that will bring you to the page that the person has asked the question on. So you know instantly exactly what product they're talking about. So I'm just going to go ahead now and answer that question. So let's say our opening hours are 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday, something like that. So the user gets that notification on the front end, and they might reply with a thank you message or whatever. So we're having a live chat between us. Okay, so I can say here, okay, and that's just the Chrome notification that the user gets on their site. So that's us having a live chat. So there's a number of things I can do with this question now. Maybe I want to get other team members involved. So the team section is defined down here. So here is the team section. We have groups at the top, and I'll explain groups in a minute. But this is a particular team. So I've got Alan, Ian, and John. So if they were online, there'd be a little green dot next to them, but this is just a test environment. Again, they're not online at the moment. But this is very handy because it's an internal chat system. So I'm actually based in Ireland, and Alan is in our Taiwan office. So if I wanted to contact Alan, I can just click here and say, hi, Alan, can you help with something? You can see I asked him a previous message on top there as well. But this is a great way for us to communicate between each other. So for people who are in different offices, it's a fantastic way of being able to contact each other. But maybe I want to assign that question that came into each of these guys. So I can do that. You'll notice that the question, because it's been answered now, has moved across to the In Progress tab. It's no longer in New. So it's moving across to where we want it to be in Close. So I could say that I want to assign that question. There's two ways I can do it. I could click the Assign button on the question tile itself on this screen, or I can go into the question and assign it here from the right-hand side. So I could assign Alan, Ian, and John to that particular question. So they're all assigned to the question, and I can see their avatars as well. So if they had a picture of themselves added, I would see that there on the right-hand side as well. So I know who's assigned to that particular question. So other functionality that I can do from within the question here is that underneath the input box, there's some options. Now, I'll go through some of them in a minute, but I just want to show you here that you could attach an image. So if I attach a particular image, so, for support, it could be a a screenshot of something that you might want to show someone, or a retailer might want to, for the jacket example, maybe if someone asks about a particular jacket that might be not in stock, and the agent might say, well, we don't have this particular jacket, but we have a new line of jackets coming in, and here's an image of it if you're interested. So putting an image in is a great way to add context to the conversation. So if I add that image here, you'll see that it comes through nicely on the front end, and the user can click that as well to make it bigger. So another feature around the team that I want to show is, let me ask a new question here, and I'm going to ask the exact same question again. You see this time that it doesn't ask me for contact details now, because I've already put in my contact details on the last question, so the system knows who I am. So a returning visitor, once they don't clear the cookies, doesn't have to go through and putting in an email address or phone number every time they ask the question. So here again, I have a notification on the bottom right that the question was asked, and I've got a little red dot here again on my team inbox to show that a question has come in. And here is the new, here is the new question. So it's the second question. And I can click in again. So what now if Ian, Alan, and John were all part of the same group? So, you know, maybe they're part of a support team, or they're in customer service, something like that. What I can do in my team area is I can add a group. So I can say, okay, I want to create a new group, and maybe I call it customer service team for the CS team, and create that group. Okay, so here's my CS team, and I want to add Alan, Ian, and John to that particular group. So if a question is assigned to that group, each member of that group will get a notification of that question. So it's a group like a group in WhatsApp, for example. If you use WhatsApp, you create a group. If you put a message into that group, every person in that group will see that message, and they can reply to that message. If I want to assign that question to the group now, I can do that instead of having to assign each person individually. So instead of assigning them individually, I just assign that to the customer service team, and they'll get notified. Okay, so you can see here, because I'm part of that team as well, because I created it, a little red dot appears to say there's new activity there on the team section. So here's the question in that group. And again, that's all internal. So, you know, we could have a group conversation here if we want to, or we can just click back into the question to be able to answer that question. Now, a very important part of Chatify as well is that you can add as many people as you want to the back end. So the customer service team might be these 3 or 4 people here, but maybe it's a big organization, and there's other people that are involved that you may need to escalate a question to at times. You can add all those people to the back end of Chatify, again, at no cost. So let's say if a senior manager, for example, only needs to answer a question once a week, or get involved in a question once a week or once a month, you can add them here. And then if and when you need to get them involved, you can either direct message them in the back end or assign that question to them. And that's a really great feature, because it pulls the whole team into the customer service when needed. Other systems will charge to add that person to the back end, but we believe that kind of interferes a little bit, because it's saying, okay, I don't want to add this person because my costs will go up, and then that kind of breaks the kind of customer service environment that you might have in the organization. So moving on here to one of the other great features of Chatify is the knowledge base feature. And this allows us to automate answers back to the customer. So you can see, even in this example, I've already had a repetitive question. So I intentionally asked the same question twice about opening hours. And that's a pretty common question that would be asked. So if I want to add that, I can add that to my knowledge base so that if a question comes in from another user, the same question or a similar question, they'll be prompted automatically with the answer. So I'm going to push this to my knowledge base. So to do that, I just hover over the question that I want there, a little red dot appears. And when I click that, a menu comes up. So you can see I can do things if I could ban the visitor if needed, or there's other options here. But I just want to take the FAQ one to push that question to the FAQ database. And the answer, I can hover over and push that to the FAQ answer. Now I could edit the answer as well. So maybe I want to include a link. Here is a link to our opening hours, and put in the link. I'm not going to do it here, but a link is handy because most of the time the website will have the most up-to-date information. So if information changes and you're just linking to it from the question, you know that you're sending the user through to the most updated information, rather than having to go into your question on Chatify and changing it when the information updates. I could add tags, which might help with the search. So for example, if it's about a question about costs, I might want to add a tag that might say price or pricing or something like that. And FAQs as well. The FAQ system is really clever because you can define an FAQ for a single page. So a question might be asked that might only relate to a particular product. So you can add the FAQ that it will only be prompted back if the person asked the question on that particular product page. So again, in the case of a jacket, a person might ask, does this jacket come in black? But they're only asking about that question on that page. So it only makes sense that the FAQ would come up on that page. And you can input the URL of the page where you want that question to come up. Now, the question I have here at the moment is a very general question that could be asked on any page. So I can just click here and say, actually, I want that to be available for the whole website. And I can publish that FAQ. Okay, and you can see that I have a previous FAQ set up because I want to show that in the minute. But if I go into my knowledge base, you can see that the two questions that I've set up are here. This is the one that I just added from the question. So now, if I go back now as a user here, and I just want to ask a new question. So let's say the user comes back now and says, when are you open? So you can see now that the automated answer has come back, even though it's not exactly the same question that was asked, but we know it's about the opening hours, so we can prompt that back, and the user can read the question. So this is fantastic if you're not around. So it could be, a lot of people will browse in the evening time. So if you have a good set of knowledge-based questions and answers, if a question comes in the evening time, there's a chance that you could automate that question back to the customer. And that's a really nice experience for the customer. If for some reason they ask a question that isn't part of the knowledge base, you could just automate it back. We're not online right now, but we will get to your question. So you're just setting the expectation for the customer nicely. So I could say, yes, that helped. And then anything else at this stage, I might say no. So the user has actually closed that question themselves. So if we go back into our dashboard now and click in here into our team inbox, we can see that there's actually a closed question now, which is just the question that the user did without the agent ever having to be involved. So here I can see the question is closed. So the system is actually closing questions automatically there itself. Just a little bit about the navigation here. Just on the right-hand side, you can see I could go back to the CS team, or I could go back to my conversation with Alan. Just a nice way that I can get back around the questions, or go back to question one again. Now, related to the knowledge base is what we call agent assist. So we want to kind of assist the agent as much as possible when it comes to asking questions or answering questions. So if we go back to this original question again, which is the one that I put the image into, what I can do here is I can show a feature that we call Smart Prompt. So if I go back to just that question, sorry, it's the one with the image in it. Okay, and let's say we're in the middle of that conversation. So the person has asked about opening hours. You know, they said thank you. I said you're welcome. You know, I put a screenshot in there. But maybe they ask, do you deliver? So back in the question now, notice that the Smart Prompt icon has highlighted. So what that's doing, it's querying the knowledge base to see if there's a relevant answer to that particular question. So if I click on the Smart Prompt here, I can see, oh, it is showing me about delivery. And if I click that, that would put the answer into the input box for me. So we deliver nationwide. If you order before 2 p.m., the order will be there on the next business day. So I've got the question ready-made. I don't have to type it out. I can just put that in automatically and press enter, and then the person gets that question back on the front end again. You'll notice here as well that we have some information about the question that, you know, an automated email notification was sent to that person. So it was sent to this email address there on the right-hand side, and the person actually re-accessed the conversation. So as an agent, you know that they've come back to the conversation or they've seen your answer. And I'll show a little bit about the email notification towards the end of the video. Another thing here that's very helpful is what we call canned messages. Just to show the canned message here. So let's say at the end of each conversation, you might type something like, you know, you're very welcome, have a nice day. So you might say, or if you, something like, if you have any more questions, just ask. So you can pre-populate those little messages, save you time having to type them each time. And you can access them just by hitting the backslash key on your keyboard. So if I hit the backslash key, it comes up with some pre-populated messages. So these are the messages kind of under a goodbye heading. These are ones under a hello heading, or these are ones under wait. And you can add to these. But let's say if I say you're very welcome. If you have more questions, just let me know. I can click that, and it automatically puts it in. And I can edit it if I want to, even add the full stop at the end there, or type something else. But that's a real time saver because I don't have to keep typing that now every single time I close out a question. I want to close out a question, and I can just put that in, and the person gets that on the front end as well. So at this stage, I might want to close the question. So you can see I can close the question from the bottom right. So everything is done. And I can close that here, and the question moves into the closed section. So if I go back in here now, I have no in progress questions, and now I have 2 questions in my closed section. One other very handy feature that we've added to the Chatify dashboard here is the ability to chat around the question from within the question itself. So here's the customer area of the question. So I could reply to that. I could say, let me help you with that. Okay. So at this stage, on the right-hand side here, there's an option for internal comments about that particular question. So maybe it's a particularly complicated question, or maybe the person has a complaint or something like that, and you might want to pull another member of the team into answer the question. So I could mention someone. So I could mention John and say, can you help with this? And then John will get a notification. And when he goes into the question, he'll see that there's an internal discussion around that question. So if I close out of that, you can see it's moved to in progress again. If I just click in here, you see that the internal comments area has highlighted in red to show that there's a comment there. If it wasn't, because I made that comment, I don't get a notification in the middle, but any other user will get a notification up here to say that there's a new internal question or new internal comment about the question, so that they don't miss it. And this will be right for them as well. And they can just click in here, and John can come back in here and have a discussion about this. Obviously, it's just me typing here, but that could be John saying, you know, I can help with that particular question. We could have a discussion, and that internal question then stays with that question. That internal discussion stays with that question. So an agent can easily see any internal chat that happens around that particular question. So that's a really nice feature. So I just wanted to show here in this closed question again, you can see I just spoke about the email notification. So we don't send the email notification instantly, and the reason for that is because if you notice on this question here, I've asked, I've answered a couple of times. So I've answered 1, 2, 3 times in the space of a minute or two. So we don't want to spam the customer by saying, oh, here's an email notification, here's a new reply, here's a new reply, here's a new reply. So we give it a couple of minutes before we actually send that email notification to allow the agent time basically to reply to the question and not spam the customer. But from the user side, if the user has gone offline, they'll get the email notification, so they might get it on their phone. So let's see that the user inbox here. So you can see that the email notification has come through. And here there's a new comment about that particular question. So if I click on here, as a user now, I can go in and view that message. And what this does is it actually brings the user back to the website. So this is really powerful as well, because it's bringing your customers back to your website, where essentially where you want them to be. And it opens the conversation and shows them the conversation in that window. And they can see the conversation, and then they can close that. And now they're back on your website. So, again, for a retailer, this is really important. They're back on your website, and maybe they'll go on now and make a purchase from there. So that shows a lot of the functionality that you need, the basic functionality. There is much more, but I don't want the video to be too long. As I said, it's really a training session just to get you started. If you do need support from us, you can click on the help section, and directly from the help section, you can contact us from the dashboard, directly from your dashboard, and we get a message in our dashboard to say you contacted us, that you have a question, and we can hopefully help you out from there. So that's it. Thank you for listening. And as I said, if you do have any questions, just contact us there through the dashboard. Thank you very much.